Yeah, so the quote is, what is it? I am yours, don't give myself back to me. This kind of typical of Rumi's poetry. It's called, what people call it, like mystic verse. So he uses lots of different symbols, lots of different wordplay, but it's all emerging directly out of his experience of oneness with the supreme consciousness. And one of the main ways um, that the Sufis like to speak about connection with um, God or connection with reality is as lover and beloved. In this case, the seeker, the aspirant, is the lover, and the beloved is God, is the absolute reality. And all of these different traditions have their different way of framing God, framing truth, framing the path, framing a kind of um, lifestyle and culture that is, suitable or recommended for the path. And these are all made to suit different people, right? Different beings. So a different specific being will find a path that suits them, will find a tradition that suits them, will find a master or guru or sheikh that suits their way of wanting to connect with the supreme reality. And really, as long as there's a kind of fully realized being there, a Sadguru is there, then you can't really say one is better than the other, with these traditions, you know, whether, within Hindu path, yogic path, Sufism, Buddhism, I don't want to say studies the wrong word. I've connected to a lot of these traditions, masters from these traditions of the past, just through my interests in reading and stuff. And there's been great siddhas in all of these traditions. And in some paths, some traditions, I like the way some traditions do one thing, and I like the way some traditions talk about other things. For instance, I find that the way in certain sects of Buddhism, Dzogchen, which is the one I'm connected to, the way they talk about this development connection with consciousness, especially after the stage of awakening, is completely unparalleled in any of the traditions, whether it's Hindu, Sufi, whatever. For me, it's just completely unparalleled the way they talk about these things, right? And then some, poetry of the style of Rumi is also probably unparalleled in other traditions. Or maybe some traditions do rituals best, or maybe some traditions made a really kind of made it made the tradition, made the path extremely livable, so that people could really learn to embed this path into their daily life and daily life as a human being. So it could be something that one does whilst one is, you know, works, has family, and all these kind of things. I mean, this was obviously highly present in the Hindu tradition, and still is to some degree, with these stages of life, brahmacharya, grahastha. etc. So, each of these different traditions have something different to bring and have, different way of talking about things. And usually we connect to the one which resonates with us most. And when we do that, it's good to kind of stay in one place because the mind likes to wonder. The mind likes new things, new practices, new rituals, new masters, new words of guidance, new way of talking about the same things over and over again. So this plurality of paths, plurality of gurus and traditions can also be a bit of a trap, right? If we want so much to, we can spend forever exploring all of these things. You can do university courses these days in Eastern religion, Eastern mysticism, and stuff like this. But it doesn't mean that the people that spend most of their lives studying these things become siddhas. Absolutely not. A lot of the great siddhas and avadhutas have been completely uneducated, you know, and can think a few of this, great tradition of jnanis from Ramana Maharishi, like Annamalai Swami, Matharushi, Sharada. These people had no real spiritual education, but when you read their talks or read their writings, the clarity is just, it's like a living scripture. So it's not necessary to go into these things and go into all of these explorations. It can be more of a trap. It can be just endless diversions and deviations if we do this. But if it's natural for us to look into these different things, then definitely it's good. I've got my own different connections with different lineages, different masters of the past. Maybe these were relevant in past lives, who knows? And definitely these things inform how I speak about these things. And another issue with these things is that some of these lineages, these very old lineages, get degraded and corrupted with time, which basically means you have one master emerges, fully realized being, starts the lineage, and then he creates an organization or names an successor and gives some kind of power there to initiate or do, host this or that, or to train people or whatever. But yet no one that comes after that master, let's say, equals his stature or level of realization. What this means is, with time, with the generations, that realization, that burst of truth that came forward, and master comes through, he gives totally original teachings, totally original practices or whatever. Mohanji is a perfect example of this kind of thing. But often you can have then, if it doesn't carry on to kind of someone else within the same lineage who's on the same level, or maybe it does for 2, 3, 4 generations and then it drops off. If this doesn't happen, then the whole thing gets diluted eventually, right? Because you need this continuous presence of full realization to keep the teaching relevant, right? Because what a master does, a real master does, like Avatar or whatever, when they come, it's not just like they talk about the truth in the same way that the truth has always been spoken about. What they do is that they look at the minds of the people that come to them through previous karmic connection, and they look at the state of the collective consciousness in general, and automatically they talk about the truth and they give practices in such a way that will suit the minds of these different kinds of beings. So you look at some religion, spiritual traditions, and how that emerged at that time was suitable for the people of that time. But that's not to say that that is still going to be suitable for the people of that time, 100 years later, 200 years later, 1,000 years later, because times change. You know, we're not living in the same world now that people were living in when, you know, people were practicing the Vedas and stuff like this. You can't say it's we can't say it's the same world at all, right? With role of technology and all of these different things. So this is why masters continuously emerge and take new bodies, is to keep the teaching relevant. So either a lineage manages to do this somehow, the creator or whatever you want to call it says, okay, this lineage we're going to keep a pure flow of masters in this lineage. It will be arranged that fully realized beings keep emerging in this line, and each one can in turn, you know, modernize the teaching, make the teaching more relevant. Or we just create a new master and we make him pop up from nowhere, right? And he just starts the whole thing again. So he's not, maybe he references the other teachings lightly, but he's not leaning on any of the teachings. Another great example of this in 20th century is Jiddu Krishnamurti as well. He also emerged from nowhere. I mean, Theosophists found him and they tried to put him in that framework of that organization, but eventually he broke away from it. But really, he was just found as a child, and his realization just blossomed from within naturally. And there's a nice saying about this actually in the Buddhist system as well. In that system, they have a word for beings who are like avatars, or like beings that are incarnations of already highly spiritually evolved beings. They call them tulkus. And they had a saying in one part of Tibet that in order to bloom, to blossom, to become a great realized being in this incarnation, all that the tulku has to do is not mess up, basically, not get himself in any trouble. As long as he doesn't take any detours, then he will just naturally become what he already is. And to other people who might be there who think they're working very hard on their spirituality, it'll be like, well, this person just comes from nowhere, and it's just that, you know, everything just kind of blooms from within without even practicing or doing whatever. Or they're able to give teachings or talk in such a way which is just unparalleled. So these things happen. So, you know, these are all different ways that the teachings, that the traditions unfold. Usually it's when there's these kind of lineages and traditions that carry on from generation to generation. This is usually an easier way to do it, because what happens then is that you have families that are connected to this, say, this religion or this tradition, and then the children are reincarnate into the same tradition and the same lineage over and over again, and the same masters reincarnate as well. So then it just becomes like people just continue their training from one life to the other. People get to a certain level in one life within one system, and then maybe the next life they're born as their own born as their own grandson or born as their own great grandson, and then they just continue the training from there. This is how it happens in some traditions. So the Sufi tradition is one like that, and um, there's still some lines of the Sufism which are still kind of pure. There's still a handful of lines like that which still maintain this pure lineages. I've got kind of inner connection with a few of these from the Naqshbandi line, which is one of the main, different one of these, masters in this Sufism that came, generations after the Prophet Muhammad. They each kind of put their own spin on how to do things, had their own ways, and then this became one kind of sect in a way. Same with Buddhism, how that's also split into four main schools. So it's the same kind of thing. So there's also one of these sects now which is named after Rumi as well. So in Sufism, the main, and also a nice way. Sorry, I'm not really getting around to the quote. I'm just giving a lecture a bit around the houses, but it is what it is. One of the great ways we can distinguish between this Sufism and normal Islam, this great Sheikh, Maulana Sheikh Nazim said this in a very nice way. He said, if you want to go into the house of the Lord, then Sunnah is enough. Sunnah is the normal way which all the Muslims walk. Sunnah is enough, and you go to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, the Kaaba, then you're in the Lord's house. Fine. But then he said, if you want to meet the Lord himself, then you need tariqah. And tariqah is the Sufi way, and tariqah involves guru or sheikh. Right. So same thing goes. Same thing goes in all the paths, right? If we want to become acquainted with the Lord, reality, supreme consciousness, then it's best to have a guide or a teacher. It's best to connect to somebody who's established in that state. Right, anyway. So the meaning of this quote, I'll go into, I am yours, don't give myself back to me. So this is very characteristic of, Rumi's way of speaking about God as the beloved. I am yours. See, it's a very kind of romantic way of speaking. I am yours. I belong to you. So who is the I here and who is the yours? So this I that he's talking about was his smaller self. It was his self as an individual, his self as what he felt to be a personality, wandering around in the world. And the yours is the supreme. This is God. So he's saying, I am yours. I belong to you. I belong to you in a state of total, submission. So this means when we give ourselves to something like that, gradually we become that thing. Right? When we go through this path, we start learning to accept the will of God. What is the will of God? Will of God is just what happens, basically. Whether we want something to happen or we don't want something to happen, what we call the will of God is just what ends up happening, basically. From moment to moment, that's it. And we can feel that we have our own will to do this, to do that, to make this happen, to make that happen. Fine. But even our will to have that is also God's will. And for us to want something and God to say, no, you can't, that's also his will, right? So everything is God's will, even if we say, I don't care about God's will, that's also God's will. Everything is that. So to align ourselves with that God's will, universe's will, nature's will, whatever you want to call it, simply means to accept what happens, to accept what is from moment to moment. I posted about this on the group the other day, and I said, you know, as long as we're here and we've got a body, we're always going to get the feeling of I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, or somebody asked me to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't, we're still going to want to do things, we're still going to want to go in some direction. Things may happen to us and we may feel, well, this is uncomfortable, I want to undo it, I want to, step out. All of this is going to be there. But acceptance means that we accept that something has happened, we accept our reaction to that thing, we accept our action to that thing, we accept our response to that thing, and then we accept how life responds back to us. So, for instance, let's say we've got some illness or something, some sickness or something or some injury. How would this work in this context? Okay, this thing happens, we go to the doctor, he says you've got this, got that, or we fall, break our leg or something like that. We accept, okay, this has happened. We don't resist, we don't say, oh, why has this happened to me? All this kind of stuff. Fine. And then after that, we think, okay, doctor says this is how you can make it better. We say, yes, I would like to be better. I don't want to be in physical pain. And then we can do that. We take whatever steps are necessary then to make it better. So let's say we take these steps for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and nothing seems to be happening. Again, we accept I've done what I can. I've used my will how I want to use it, but this is how life has responded. Okay. In this case, okay, nothing has happened. And we accept it. Again, so we still act, we still do things, we can still try and make things happen. But we're accepting life's response to this at every moment. So when we live like this, we really learn to dance with life. And to dance with something means you have to have some kind of harmony with it. If you try to dance with somebody, but you're out of harmony with that person, it doesn't look good, it's not going to flow. And eventually, when this becomes really, really well practiced, accepting, okay, this has come into my life, this is taken from my life, this situation has happened. The more and more we do this, the less and yet less use we have for our thinking, controlling, analyzing, fabricating mind. Because in place of all this thinking that we were doing before, trying to make things happen, trying to adjust things, control things, we just accept. We get into this stage of, like I always say, acting or accepting. So we're either taking action, saying, okay, I'm going to do this to make it how I want it, or we're accepting. We're saying, okay, I've tried this, but now this has happened, I accept. Right? And when we're actually doing something, we're not thinking around, we're doing that thing, right? Thinking is a poor man's doing, Instead of doing the thing, I think about it instead. So as we do this, we start to give away more and more and more of our mind. Because either in a split second we're thinking, right, I'm doing it, I'm putting it into action, or we're accepting it. And when we accept, there's nothing to think about. So what room is there for all of our thinking then? And what we call us, what we call self, what we call the individual self, what we call the limited self, is just our thinking from moment to moment. There is not some kind of little, elf sitting within us, like, okay, I am the little Jack sitting inside and I'm the one having all of these thoughts and sending them outside. No, what we call ourselves is just this feeling from moment to moment of, oh, I am this, I am that, I feel this, I feel that. So what we call the sense of self is something which is recreated from moment to moment just by thinking. But because we think all the time, it feels like we're always a self. We feel like this presence of, oh, I am, Jack or whatever. We feel that this is a permanent reality because we are constantly recreating that with our thinking, right? Apart from when we're in deep sleep, then it's just like abyss, everything's gone. But as soon as we wake up, mind activates, and again, we're there, right? Because we say that, we say in deep sleep, we say, I don't know where I was, I don't know what was happening. Peace was there, I was just gone. But when we say I wasn't there, thinking wasn't there. But because we are identified only with thinking, we think that, oh, we weren't there in the deep sleep. But actually, we, as the real self, as our actual nature, was there in deep sleep. Is that one, that indwelling self, what we call Atma, is just as much there in deep sleep as he is in the dream state or in the waking state. That's what we call Turiya. The fourth state is when you're in that substratum state, which is in all those other states, is that essence awareness permeating all those other states, right? But in deep sleep, okay, what is there to be? Still, there's nothing to be aware of because the mind is shut off, body is locked down, so there's nothing really to be aware of in that state. But yet we are still there. We are always there, even in that state as well. So the point here is that the more we start accepting, the less we are having this controlling, worrying thoughts and stuff like that. And the less we're having these kind of thoughts, the sense of self just becomes lighter, subtler, less heavy. You can you can get this when you meet people. Some people you meet, you can feel the heaviness. This heaviness is uh, their thinking process from moment to moment, right? It chisels itself on the face. It weaves its way into the body, stress points, tightness in the body. So that thinking presents itself through the body, through the eyes, through everything, right? So again, when we start thinning out that thinking through acceptance and awareness, surrender, we just become lighter and lighter and lighter. And the path is that you just keep doing that more and more and more and more and more on subtler and subtler and subtler levels. This feeling of being a self, being separate, gets subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler. Imagine like an ice cube floating around in an ocean. Both are water, but the ice cube is like a solidified water. So on this path, we're melting that ice cube. You can imagine on that last moment where that last little drop of solidity just dissolves, and then where are you? Where are you then? You're the ocean then. There's no trace of you even left at that point, right? So that's really the meaning of this quote. I am yours, don't give myself back to me. So he's saying, look, I've given myself to you. I've surrendered my ordinary flow of thinking, my worries, my controls, my desire that things have to be this way. I've surrendered that and I've said, Lord or beloved, I only want what you want. I only want what you will for me. That means when we wake up in the morning, whatever happens to us, that is the correct thing. Still, we'll have our feeling, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Fine. This will be there till the end. But the results of these things, how life reacts to our actions, this we totally accept. Like something happens in life, whether apparently good, apparently bad, or apparently good, we say, yes, beloved, only your will, not mine. When we do this, we this this self, it shrinks, it becomes useless because it hasn't got a job to do anymore. What is the job of thinking? What is the job of the limited sense of self? It's to resist, right? It's to resist what happens, basically. It's to argue. That's its only job. So if you stop doing that and you say, look, I'm going to surrender, then this self has been put out of a job, right? And then it's going to go. So in this quote, Rumi is saying that, look, I've given myself to you, and that's it. I don't want to ever come back. I don't want this feeling of this separate little character, this separate little elf to emerge ever again. I'm happy. I've surrendered myself to you. I've merged myself into you, and that's it. Bas, finished. I'm happy with that. So this is what he's saying. This is the meaning of this quote, and this is really key to the language of the Sufis. It's a language of longing. It's a language of divine romance, and this longing and divine romance is always towards complete dissolution. Ordinary romance is enjoying the play of two. It's enjoying the play of duality, celebrating duality, actually. But this divine romance is to find this beloved first. You find your beloved. It starts off just with a feeling. There is something more. There is something higher. There is something greater. There is something more profound. It starts off with that. And then the more we start longing for this thing, the more we start searching for this thing. That begins to take up more of our time, more of our mental energy. And then we learn about surrender, we learn about acceptance. And when we do this, then we're giving ourselves away. We're making ourselves smaller, right? Because there's that quote, I think it's a quote in the Bible as well, that in order to enter into God's kingdom or whatever, it's like you've got to fit through the eye of a needle, or something like that. That means your ego, your sense of self, has to be so small and so subtle that you could fit it through the eye of a needle. You know what I mean? So then that happens. Then eventually you start to feel, you start to feel what this God is. You start to feel that, yes, this is not something outside of me. This is a presence within me. This is an untouchable space of peace inside of me. So then you start to connect with that, and then you feel that peace, that silence, is just the most intoxicating thing imaginable. And then you keep going into it, and the more you go into that, like an ordinary addict, right? Like ordinary heroin addict, for instance, the more they go into this drug, the more, these ordinary aspects of life, relationships, position, place in society, all of that gets dried up, withered away. Same with this. When we go into this, we connect with this, all of the parts of us that wanted to be somebody in this world, that wanted to do this, wanted to do that, that thought this, that thought that, that believed this, that believed that, was this, was that. All of that things connected with this sense of self, it just all that dries up, it withers away. We just become smaller and smaller and smaller. And as we become smaller, the God aspect, that presence becomes greater and greater and greater. And then we just start getting lost in it, you know. And the real that divine romance is kind of, yeah, that was it in the comments. Easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Yeah, that was a bit of a different quote. But I mean, I said it differently. But yeah, this divine romance is really culminated when we can't find ourselves anymore, right? We look, we look inside, and we only God is there. We look outside, and then only God is there too. So this is this place where we have to come to. So we're just lost in that, and you can't be recovered either, right? But along that journey, before we get to that point, there is this dance of lover and beloved. I am connecting to this, or I am connecting to the guru, or if we want to personify the divine as a guru, or I am connecting to the beloved, I am connecting to the divine, I am connecting to silence. But as we do this, that I that we think we are is getting dissolved in that one, getting diluted in that one. And eventually there's no I to connect with anything. That thing that we were connecting to has eaten that I up and swallowed it. Right? So then what's left? Only that. Only God remains and only consciousness remains. But this is a long journey. Even once we realize we have the tacit experience that I am that. Still, then the traces can remain, just traces, faint traces of this I-ness, of this sense of self. And the path of dissolution is all about finishing the job, making sure that not even the slightest morsel of that self-identification remains. And we do this, we accomplish this not through just sitting down pretending to meditate. We accomplish this through really living fearlessly, because life will show us, it'll put us in situations which will trigger us, and we'll see, oh yeah, there is something still there. There is some look, why is if I am everything, then why have I still got a bit of fear inside of me? What's there to be scared of if I'm everything? Oh, I am everything, but still there's some insecurity. Who is insecure? Right? See, all of these things have to be completely annihilated. Can't be any trace of anything left inside on this path of dissolution. It's you sit, you look inside, or maybe you got a busy day, you go and lie down in bed at night and you look inside and there's just nothing there. There's no little narration, there's no little background talk. There's just that sound, that vibration of existence, this omkara, which is just the vibration of life. So once there's no inside left, this concept of looking within, even that is gone, because there's no there's no within to look, right? It's like imagine like a bit of a weird, stupid example, but imagine you wake up and you're in just a space of whiteness, blankness, vastness, whiteness, blankness, and you say, "Oh, this is what's there." And then you look at your own hands, but you haven't got hands. That's also just vastness. And you look at so you try to reflect back on yourself when you say, "Okay, well, what's inside of me then? Have I at least got some thoughts about something?" And you look inside, and also that's only vastness. So when you get into this state, then everything becomes one, and that is the supreme oneness. That's the supreme unity. This level of oneness, unity, it's not even aware of itself. Mohanji says this when he talks about levels of samadhi. He says in the final stage, you are not even there anymore. You just become that presence of the universe. You just become that presence, that energy that's existing in everything. You've got no separate identity left of your own whatsoever. So that's the goal. That's the goal of the path. That's where we're going. It's not, like I said, it takes a long time, even after awakening to this feeling of I am consciousness. Still, it takes time because still traps will come. Temptations will come. We'll be tempted into, oh, look, here's, if you want to identify as a self again, we can make a very nice situation for you. You can be very big, guru, very powerful, whatever, right? All these things will come. It's not to say that someone who's established in that state won't eventually, people won't say, oh, this is a guru, this is a sage. But people can even say this about people who are normal people, right? Lower than normal people, people can say this about. So that doesn't mean anything. What people say, oh, this is a great guru, is meaningless, basically. Right. Only people know themselves, what they are. So on this journey, we should be honest about ourselves. We have to see with this criteria also, do I do I still have an inside? Do I still have an interior world, an interior mental world, an interior emotional world? As long as that remains, job is not done yet. But we're on the path. It's doable. Like this path, you know, once we start talking about these kind of things, people hearing about these kind of things, definitely it can be done in one life once we're on that track. But depends. It depends if we've got other things we still want to do, other experiences we still want to have, because that experience will only come once everything else is exhausted. All other experiences that we want to have through this feeling of, for instance, I am Jack, and Jack is in this position, enjoying this position. Jack is in this relation, enjoying this relation. All of those things those have to be exhausted first. We have to be completely finished with this, any sense of assuming a character in this world or any other world, right? Assuming this separate character amongst other characters. Because only then will we become pure enough to completely dissolve. So that's ultimately the meaning of this Rumi's quote, and many of his writings play with this entwinement between being unified, but being apparently separate here. So anyway, I've said what I wanted to say. Sunday speech is over for another week.